So I'm going to present you now a few reflections for my recent fieldwork in Paris. This is a part of a broader study of inclusive multilingual pedagogies. So now I'm completing a PhD doctorate in language science, and my work focuses on linguistic and educational integration of adult immigrants, especially in community-based French courses in Paris. Okay? So there is my research in the university, and I also teach French in this community setting as a French teacher. So I'm going to share with you not only my academic observation, of course, of the phenomena, but also my direct experience as a teacher researcher. So, and my everyday observation. Okay, so I'm going to start with a question. So for me, it's very important to talk about why migrant classrooms are unique and what can we do in order to respect this unicity. So let's just say that in a typical French class for recently arrived adults in associative context, I mean, you may find learners there who speak French quite fluently. For example, immigrants from Africa or from Maghreb, but maybe they have never learned to read or write to read or write in any languages. So again, perfectly fluent in oral production, but not that much in writing. So they are sitting next to others who have studied French for maybe 2 years, only 2 years, but they're already there the constant and consistent to still elementary skills in oral and written production. So this is a problem that we have to take consideration. Not in literacy classes, because in literacy classes it's easier because you just have to learn how to write, how to read, and everyone has the same purpose. But in classes that like ours, we need to the main purpose is to get a certification. So the certification is the I don't know if you know it. It's about the DELF and DEF and DALF. Do you know anything about it? It's the of course, it's the certification or the European certification official for that they need in order to get their administrative visa and they need that in order to get their visa and the German certification. So, well, residence permit, for example, and this is a very important thing because we get a lot of variety, a lot of mixed in this class because we are aiming at the A2 level, for example. But because it's necessary to get the first residential permit, but a lot of people are not A2. A lot of people are just A1, or maybe they should be in literacy classes, but they really need the permit, so they inscribe themselves. So this is one of the problems that can be very tricky to get. So as I say, urgent and uneven language needs. So I just defined the urgency. Limited pedagogical resources because I just have to agree with my colleagues about the role of teachers, the importance of teachers, and how it's difficult to be a teacher, and in this kind of context where there is not a lot of resources and material resources, of course. And of course, I never mentioned it, but I didn't mention it, but the extreme diversity in age, literacies, and goals. Yes, so that can be. That have to be taken into consideration. And so my main goal is the studies that I'm going to speak to you about. It's proposed a framework that combines differentiation, multiliteracy, and structured and class languages in order to make learning accessible to all of the learners. So the questions are the following. So, which teaching moves most effectively help manage heterogeneity in classrooms? How do multiliteracy and task and bundled bilingual setup influence access to instruction and participation? And what tension do teachers need to navigate in this volunteer-based context? Let me just rephrase it. Volunteer teachers context, it means that the teachers in the association are volunteer, so they're not paid. all of them are not paid. So, well, so again, this is my theoretical framework that I based my research with. So I based this experimentation with classes with this framework about dynamic bilingualism. It means that in classes like that, in language classes, we always focus on the A2, and we forget that how much is important for this kind of context the L1 use. So it means that in this context, I found that the fact that the learners can mobilize their full linguistic repertoires, it can be very important. And then the investment theory, of course, so investment and identity. Also, this is a very important thing in immigrant classes, because I think that, I mean, especially in this context, there is a very important connection between the present and the future of these immigrants. That means that classes are not only for present, but to imagine a potential future. That's what keeps the motivation going in this kind of case. For example, a lot of immigrants can have different goals. For example, about getting a new job, or maybe being more fluent in order to connect more with people. That's what we're talking about with integration. And this is very important, that they can see their personal and future life in order to get better. And that's our role as a teacher, to show them that what their personal goal can be, what things can change with their implication. Language as a social practice, of course. So it means that in this kind of classroom, we have to keep focus on the main goal is speaking and oral speaking. This is the most important thing. And so it's particularly important to use real supports. So supports that are from newspaper or radio, television. So in this case, it's particularly important to focus on that input. And multiliteracy pedagogy, which spans literacy beyond. I mean, literacy is not only about writing, but it's also about a more large meaning in social life in France. Okay, so I now I'm going to talk to you about how I managed to use this theory to conduct my study. So my study was conducted in the association where I worked as a teacher in Espace 19. So this is an association in the north of Paris. Well, it's free or almost free for immigrants. So it's very, there are not a lot of them, but they are very exclusive. It means that we don't have place, unfortunately, for everyone, but we have small classes of 12 people. And it must be difficult. It's very difficult every time to select the people that are going to be in classroom. But yes, so I conducted this studies last year about the data of last university, how to say that? Last scholar year. Well, so it's about 4 classes from level A1 to level B2, and which each note with around 12 learners for a total of 48 participants. So 48 people, immigrants, participate to my study, and the learners were mostly first arrival, or I mean, everyone was aged between 30 and 60 with highly mixed literacy background, and from unschooled adults to those with higher education again. So my position was dual, because I was at first a teacher, but of course I was coordinating I was a teacher in the A1 class, but I was coordinating the other classes. So A2, B1, and B2 level with their respective teachers, of course. So let me just say this, well, so this is the context and participation. You can see the number of classes and the number of levels. And I was the author, so I mean, I was the course teacher for the A1. And this is the demographic level of the participant. And so what is this? Okay. Yes, so okay, so the methodology combined quantitative and descriptive observation. It means that in practice the lessons was adapted to every level, but it was always the same structure. So I prepared the 4 lessons for 2 hours for each of them group, and adapted, of course, to the level of the group, but topics were changed. It means that, for example, for immigrants, we prepare classes about housing, how to rent a house in France, how to ask for a refund, for a reimbursement in the healthcare system in France, how to apply for a job, for example, how to do a job meeting, how to apply for a residence permit. But again, the pedagogical design was identical. So all the lessons included the 5 supports. It was the visual supports, so images, icons, and diagrams. It was the glossaries, of course. Donc, I introduced a short list of a glossary of keywords with small drawings, and the learners were allowed to translate them in their mother tongue. They were allowed to use their phone in the first setup part of the classes. And for example, in the first language, it can be Chinese, Arabic, Bengali. We have a lot of Bengali in our classes, and of course English. But only again during the setup phase. But all the production and assessment in the future remained in French. There was the role rotation. That was very important because in order to keep the same level for everyone, the same amount of speaking and production for everyone, for every level, and they have to choose between. Yes, it was the most important thing. They were able to choose between different tasks. That means that, for example, if a student were more fluent with oral production or written production, they could switch role in order to help themselves. So they were in groups. And the support were applied with a Bloom's taxonomy structure. So it was the taxonomy was respected, and for example, we used to start with a simple matching activity using the images and keywords, but also gradually moved to a short written production, like a mini poster or email in the end of the classes. Okay, so at the end of the lessons, I was able to give them a short survey. It was a 6-question Likert survey, so very easy to. We did it in 10 minutes, and in simplified French, of course, about how useful each support has been for them for their learning and participation. Okay. So this is about my methodology. As I said, there was a Likert questionnaire, so I liked the survey on 5 supports, the supports that we give in classes. So there was observation logs and artifacts. So I take notes and observation during classes, and I had the survey. And then I structured the lessons in this way. So bilingual structure at first, then visual and oral warm-up with peer-to-peer collaboration, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So I use I based my activity on the taxonomy of Bloom's, and then the survey. Okay, so for example, again, as I said, it was a matching activity with, for example, match icon and the word for the iconographic translation. Then, for example, they had to fill a transport form. There was something more difficult for them to fill a form, any form actually, about for example, a refund, healthcare, or a form to create different kind of contracts in France. Then they had to justify their choices, of course, and to ask why it's and they had the moment to ask, for example, to peer if they didn't understand something, they were just discussing with themselves. Then, for example, there was compare 2 options. For example, the 2 options were like a writing instruction or an oral instruction was the most easy to understand, or what was the easy way to get to their purpose, that was filling a task in France. And again, they have to to comment everything at the end with the oral presentation. So this is the first result of the 48 surveys. So the first graphic, it's about the general perception of the supports. For example, how did they like the supports? For example, how did they like that there were a lot of images and a lot of drawings? And of course, everyone was pretty much satisfied with that. Then there was the use of glossary. So this was a little bit tricky because I was asking them, do you really think it's useful to talk about your talk in your mother tongue? And yes, they found it useful. Again, it is a self-perspective, of course, but I thought it was useful to ask them their opinion about that. And then bilingual setup. So again, in different classes, I get with different level, I get different results. But there, I found that pretty much consistent, except for the role rotation, because I think that in the first level they found it a little bit confusing, a little bit, because it was very hard to explain for first level, and so just to be clear, this is very important because it's difficult to explain to them because they don't know any language that we speak. So it means that you cannot explain in English or French. So, okay, so so this is the I resume this with this. So what so the overall satisfaction was high again, but I mean it was the first impression just after the classes. But, it would be useful compared with after sometimes or with a second. And now I'm going to speak with a little bit about qualitative observation because with quantitative it was pretty clear, and qualitative is of course the most meaningful, but again this is a preliminary research, so I don't have the full qualitative observation for now. But what I saw in my observation was that when learners had access to visual and bilingual scaffold at the start of the task, they entered the activity with much more confidence. And they didn't wait passively for explication, they just went through it. That was immediately became working. So I was very happy about this. It was very effective. Then about pair work and role rotation. They create cooperation in the classroom because of course it's stronger learners help the other naturally, but without dominating, because at the end I switched the role of the classroom. And multiliteracy design was also very important because I got the impression that allowed them to, especially for low literacy learners, it allowed them to succeed in tasks that would otherwise have been accessible. I mean, just to do an example, just let's imagine two learners in the same activity, and there is one who doesn't, who is very proficient in oral, and the other one who doesn't, but he doesn't know how to read, and the other one is kind of proficient in oral and in written situation. And in that case, maybe the person who knows how to read can read the assignment to the other one, and the other one can translate. So it was a very interesting acting of task. So again, the task competition was really elevated because almost all groups finished in time. Of course, the A1, A2 are always a little bit more trickier than the second one, but I got the impression that that change that made really some good changing significant. And again, what about that? Yes. What is my interpretation? That of course I understood that heterogeneity can become complementary because even if it's immigrant classes, I think that the message can be really important to and apply to other kind of classes. For example, I mean that for teaching, for teachers, for example, I think it's important to consider that it's they have to keep in mind that we keep the same goal but with different access routes. This is very important to to get the possibility to learners to get to the same point with different way and different activities. Script translanguaging, it means that I think we have to reevaluate the role of L1 in this kind of classes, because even if we keep French centered, I think we can allow L1 as a setup and rotate roles. It's very important because sometimes in classroom, we always hear the same people talking, so it's important that we keep in mind that learners are allowed to change role and are allowed to help other people without the teacher intervening. And about my limitation, I think that 48 people is not that much, and it's only one association. So this was one of my main limits. And yes, there was a self-reported data, so the data was collected just after the experience. So I would like to do some more experience about with different activities, and this is something that I would like to do in the future. And I guess I would love to talk a little bit more about my quality data, because I would like to maybe set up some semi-active interviews with in learners' first language. This is something that I'm planning to do. And maybe yes, I would like to compare classroom with and without the bilingual setup. This is something that I would like to do also, because I really have to want to explore the first language role in this kind of classroom. And yes, conclusions? No, not yet. Yes, the conclusion is I think that we have to keep a current combination of continuous differentiation, multiliteracy design, and structured languages to become to employ this classroom heterogeneity to become from a content to a resource. And yes, I think that this kind of strategy can be pretty universal. And it can be used also in other settings, like schools, university, and professional training programs. So this is something that yes, I would like to really push. I think that's another.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you so much for the presentation. You have